My step-uncle pushed me against the wall during a heated estate argument, sneering that the local authorities would always take his side, not knowing I was the town's chief of police. 3 days after we buried Grandma Josephine, her house already smelled like conflict instead of her lavender candles and burnt coffee. My step-uncle Warren showed up with a moving dolly before the funeral flowers had even wilted on the porch, slapping yellow post-its on anything he thought was worth reselling: the china cabinet, the upright piano, even the chipped ceramic rooster she kept by the sink, for reasons nobody in the family ever understood. My cousin Nadia and I were sitting at the kitchen table sorting through Grandma's jewelry box, trying to figure out which rings meant something and which were just costume pieces, when Warren stormed in, peeled my post-it off the china cabinet, and slapped his own note over it like a territory claim. "That's mine. Was always going to be mine." I told him, as calmly as I could manage, that the will was already read, and it was clear. The house, the cabinet, the savings account, all of it going to Nadia and me. Not a step-relative who'd shown up to maybe 2 family events in the last decade. His jaw tightened in that way I remembered from childhood, right before he'd start raising his voice at holiday dinners. He said I didn't understand how things actually worked in this town, that his brother-in-law sat on the county commission, that half the sheriff's department had eaten dinner at his table more than once. "You call anybody," he said, stepping in close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath. "They'll laugh you right out of the station." I didn't move. I didn't back down either, which seemed to make it worse. He grabbed my shoulder and shoved me back into the wall hard enough to knock Grandma and Grandpa's wedding photo clean off its nail. It hit the hardwood floor, and the glass split down the middle, right across both of their smiling faces. The kitchen went dead silent, except for Nadia's sharp intake of breath behind her phone, which, I'd find out a few minutes later, had been quietly recording since the second he walked through the front door. Warren jabbed a finger in my direction, chest heaving, clearly feeding off his own momentum now. "Go ahead, call the cops. They know me around here. They don't know you." I bent down, picked up the cracked photo, and set it gently on the counter like it deserved better than the floor. Then I reached into my bag, pulled out my badge wallet, and flipped it open right next to my face, slow enough that he had plenty of time to actually read every word on it. Chief of Police. My name, printed under a building he had almost certainly driven past 100 times without ever once looking up. His face cycled through about 4 different shades of red and gray. "You're not, since when?" "Go ahead," I said, echoing his own words back at him. "Call your guy." And somehow, pride or panic or a mix of both won out, because he actually did it. He dialed dispatch right there in Grandma's kitchen, phone on speaker without realizing it, demanding to speak to whoever was in charge about harassment from some guy claiming to be police. There was a short pause, some typing, and then the dispatcher's voice came through crystal clear, calm as ever. "Sir, I'm showing that address registered to the chief's family residence. Would you like me to go ahead and send a unit out there?" Warren stared down at the phone like it had physically bitten him. Nadia turned her own screen around so he could watch himself from 30 seconds earlier, mid-shove, saying with total confidence that they don't know you. I didn't raise my voice once through any of it. I told him he had exactly as long as it took me to find the dustpan to get his dolly, his post-its, and himself out of my grandmother's house, or the next conversation would happen downtown, on the record, in front of people who knew precisely who I was, and precisely who he wasn't. He looked at his phone. He looked at my badge. He looked at the front door, like it had suddenly become the single most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. He was gone before I ever found that dustpan. Nadia and I stood there a minute afterward, staring at the cracked photo, then at each other, before we both started laughing that shaky, adrenaline-soaked laugh you do after something like that. She still has the video saved, just in case. He hasn't called since. Neither has his brother-in-law on the commission. Funny how that works. Full story on the channel linked below.